are on. We're streaming live.
Yeah, we're rolling. So I'll put it out there. I say, one of the statements that I to the core of my being that I do, it doesn't resonate with me. It doesn't connect with me, and I absolutely hate it. Is when people say this is a war for talent. It's not. This is an absolute, unequivocal race to engage, and whoever engages first and best is going to set themselves up to create a winning organization. It really is all about engagement and how we engage and how we are enabling the candidate and the recruiter to build a meaningful relationship. But there's no war here, right? It's about experience and engagement.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever been a fan of that. And I know that in my career I have used that phrase. I'm sure we all have it at one point in time. But
we all have. I mean, it comes from McKinsey from 1997. That's how far back all of that shit goes.
Yeah.
And if you read the article that McKinsey wrote, most of the companies they talked about that were winning the war for talent, the leaders either went to jail or went out of business. Just saying.
Yeah. I don't even know how to respond to that.
I don't think you need to respond. I think that statement that Jerry just said stands on its own.
Well, I guess on that note, are you guys ready to go?
Sure. Ready.
All right, we'll jump right in.
Welcome to the CXR channel, our premier podcast for talent acquisition and talent management. Listen in as the CXR community discusses a wide range of topics focused on attracting, engaging, and retaining the best talent. We're glad you're here.
All right, howdy and hello. Welcome back to another broadcast where we are streaming live. I am your host, Matt Damon. For the next 20 minutes, we're going to talk about what's going on in the talent acquisition space. I'm going to bring in my spirit animal, Ben Affleck. Ben, how are you?
I just fine.
You never know what you're going to get.
Renaming ourselves.
Yeah,
God bless.
Just making some shit up today. It's fine.
Yeah. Okay.
We got some fun stuff to talk about today. The topic of candidate experience is certainly a focus for us. We have an event coming up. You can always check that out, cxr.work/events. Anybody who's listening, for members only, we've got that set up. We are actually offering, I think we've got 2 seats that are open for the candidate experience event. We're going to be in St. Louis in September. If you're interested, you want to attend to that, you think your organization qualifies, you are passionate about candidate experience and your org is leaning in on that work, and you'd like to attend, let us know. We'll set up an interview. We're going to mix it up a little bit and have a couple of guests that will be able to attend. We'll even feed you. There may even be wine. Will there be wine, Jerry, at the meeting?
I would hope so.
Yeah, a little bit of vino somewhere for anybody. But we are excited to bring in our guest. First time on the show to come in from Phenom. He's going to talk a little bit about, there's a brand new report that has been published. We're going to share a link to that so anybody can download that, but it's definitely worth taking a look at. Cliff, come on in from the break room. There you are, out of the green room. Cliff, we're glad you made it today. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Chris, and always great to see and speak with Jerry as well.
That's right. And Matt Damon and Ben Affleck and anybody else who wants to join the show.
However you guys want to, label yourselves. We're all about
That's it. We're all about the labels up in here. Okay, so let's do this, Cliff. Excuse me for I almost called you like a whole nother celebrity name. So Cliff, for those who have not met you, for those who do not know who you are, the work that you do over at Phenom, why don't we give you a second to sort of set the stage? If you'll give us sort of an escalator pitch, give us a couple of minutes, a little bit of background, and what you do today, and why we should even pay attention to you today.
Yeah, it's a really good question, and I'll try to answer that. I'm with Phenom, and I've been with Phenom now coming up on my 8th year. I'm employee 21 of now 1,500 as we've grown. My first role with Phenom was I was the first executive in charge of service and delivery to help build that organization out. Left that role to really work at a more strategic level, just with my background. I'm a former creative director for Philly's largest international agency at the time. And I'm a trained musician and pilot. I'm a technologist and engineer. So my varied background has really helped me understand, where the problems in this particular domain, exist, and connecting with clients from the highest level down to the folks sitting at the front line, delivering these services and experiences. And so, why should anyone listen to me? Well, I think the big thing is where Phenom has come in this domain, and we've worked with really great competitors in this market that have rallied around the idea that experience is important. When we first really started 12 years ago, you had to convince people that anything other than a basic job advertisement was important. So candidate experience was not something we invented, but something we looked at the consumer space and said, why do consumers run to Amazon and eBay and then to Shopify and some of these other big platforms from a consumer space? And it was experience. And so we incorporated that. And then we as a domain, all of our, and I'll say this because Aaron Matos is one of my favorite people in this business, who was the founder of Paradox, says it's co-opetition, right? We are all working towards the same thing. We solve problems a little bit differently, but the importance of this domain cannot be understated. And the success that we've all had in the last, I'll say 5 years, there's been a dramatic increase in the interest of delivering on experience has been important. So it really just boils down to our collective experience, not just with Phenom, but just being in this domain and working with a lot of great partners and competing against a lot of great companies, demonstrating the value.
I love that. And I do want to take a quick time out to go down a little bit of a rabbit hole. Cliff, you might have the most cultured background we've ever seen on the show. I'm going to put you back in full screen really quick. We have a piano. Yeah. We have a chessboard. We have the podcast. We certainly have some interesting art that's going on back there. Are you a Renaissance man? Is that I heard Violet?
Here's what I would say. The art is my wife's. All the art in the house. She's a fine oil painter. She's also a musician. I'm a musician. I was a touring musician for 12 years. In my early days, we still play. We have music to do at the house, and my wife has a gig coming up in a couple of weeks. And here's what I would say. I have a couple of real interest. Music is I go very deep with music. 2 years ago, in 2020 and 2021, I was an agent for a young guy by the name of Louis Knight, who finished top 7 2 years in a row on American Idol. Did a tour with him during COVID, which was incredible. We did 32 cities, 7,000 miles in 3 weeks. All while doing this job too. So I didn't take time off from that. So I'm lucky, and I'm lucky in the sense that I'm given the opportunity to do some of these things because they benefit. And here you want to talk about candidate experience, right? So I'll draw the parallel. I think this is important. Okay. It's not just about the professional work that we do. It's about everything about us holistically. And so my experience as a pilot and a musician, I owned a restaurant my dad was a chef, so I owned a restaurant for 4 years and was involved with that. All of those things play into who I am. And so it's not just about my resume. It's about how do we bring that out in the candidate experience with recruiters, with sourcers and hiring managers, so that they understand the whole person, not just the slice of me that might be the professional day-to-day. I think in this domain, and I keep talking about it, but the technology that supports the work that we do, it's important because, again, not just Phenom, but all of us are trying to get to that. We're trying to uncover the things that make the individual unique, stand out, and contribute to the values and culture of an organization. And that's the whole idea behind candidate experience. It's not just you're going to have a great experience. It is you have an opportunity to really represent who you are. So am I a Renaissance man? I don't know. That's for others to decide. All I know is there are certain things that define who I am and help really help define my values as a human being. And work is just a piece of that.
I feel more unaccomplished than I have felt in a long time. That's a lot to digest, Cliff. It's really impressive. Wow.
What I love about it too, though, is it was only a few years ago where we really focused on people compartmentalizing those issues, and that it was somehow you didn't want to share all of who you were. You wanted to focus in on the quote business side, period, rather than the diversity that we all bring. to the environment, and embracing all of that, being willing to do that. And I just think, we have made a shift, whether it was pre-pandemic or part of pandemic, whatever, but we are moving to that side where I do think we're trying to bring our entire selves to work and to other things.
I think there was an effort, Jason Seiden, who may have been the one who started to push, and I'm going to get the term profersional. He was trying to push this term profersional, and God love him, like years before anybody was even thinking that way. And to your point, Jerry, we kept everything in buckets. And I remember being a very young recruiting leader, and I would get a little irritated when you'd be on a conference call and there'd be a baby crying, or there'd be some background noise that wasn't strictly professional. And I think it's a very different scenario right now. Cliff, I don't know if you have kids, but if they come running through the background, I don't think anybody actually cares in 2023. Like we are at a very different time. And I think that piece that Jason was pushing, we had a lull in that. But I think now, to your point, like, we're back. Like, it is about the whole self and the whole person. And I love that direction. I hope we hold on to it as an industry of hirers, right? Of the people who are making the hiring decisions.
Yeah, I would agree. I think, and I do. I have a 4 and a 7-year-old. I had a third son. He was 26. He passed away in 2020 during COVID. And that experience is also something that, again, when you think about what happens in our personal lives and how it can transcend everything, the loss of a child. My wife and I started what is the right now, at least this country's only flight service dedicated to serving those that, with mental health and addiction issues. I myself am a recovering alcoholic. I'm very open about it. I speak about it a lot to demystify, destigmatize what that means. And I think, these are things that when you feel connected to an organization, as I feel to Phenom, as I feel to other organizations, being able to be myself, and not worry about negative judgment, I think is the most freeing thing that we can do for any human being. And so, Jerry, when you talk about diversity, and then, of course, you think of the equity and inclusion piece, that equity piece, it's treating everyone equal regardless of their experience, and maybe just maybe learning from their experience. Mm-hmm. So this is all part and parcel to why I think a lot of these technologies that are being built the right way and hopefully being implemented the right way to bring these, I'll say it this way. If we can use technology to make space for this kind of conversation, isn't the world a better place?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, 100%. I love that.
You did say, though, that, in building these technologies, you want to hope, if you will, that they're being used in that way. And fundamentally, I think that this next level that I really want to see from vendors and suppliers is being able to set some baseline standards for how you would use us. And if you're not able to leap to that level, then you really can't be a client. And that's a tough issue. I will say Kirk Crossroads has used that to turn down many people who might wanted to have paid us because we didn't think that they were ready.
Yeah. But
I do believe that misuse of some of the technology in our field, in talent acquisition, tars all of us, and we have some responsibility to ensure, or empower, or at least encourage our clients to get beyond baseline.
Yeah, I think that's why it's important. This organization, CXR, is really important because it's bringing this group together to say, how do we help set the standard? If you take it even further and talk about the use of AI, and there's a lot around AI bias and fear of AI, and I think we've done a great job of extolling the benefits of AI as a use case in recruitment and retention, but we haven't satisfied enough the legal challenge that is coming for that. And so, so you're right, Jerry. Like when I say hope, that's because we have work to do in this domain in order to educate. How do we ensure fairness and responsibility and accountability in these technologies?
And I absolutely believe that doing that collectively as an industry, as a profession, we should be able to move the needle, and we need to do more of that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, well, talk to us a little bit about, I think, to some of those points, because now, Cliff, I just feel like I could talk to you all day about any number of things, and you're going to have an opinion I want to hear about. But talk to us a little bit about, I mean, you guys at Phenom just did a report where you took in, I think, Fortune 500 organizations. You talked about attracting and engagement. You released this state of experience, right, of candidate experience report that has just come out. We'll put a URL up here in a second. But can you talk to us a little bit about this? I'll see if I can pull one up on the screen for those who may be watching.
Yeah, sure. So every year for the last 7 years, we've looked at the Fortune 500 because it's just a really great group of companies leading the market in their various verticals or in multiple verticals. And how are they doing with candidate experience? So we're using what is really an unbiased measurement. So there's a number of calculations. We go through it in the report as you have on the screen there. What some of those are and the methodology behind it. But really what we're looking at is how well are you engaging, attracting, and converting, based on your digital experiences. So your career site, are you using a chatbot, things of that nature. And so, we pick out elements that we know are going to be important, like responsive design. How well is your search working? Are you using AI in really smart ways? Are you pre-filling things? Are you removing unnecessary steps and challenges and clicks, in the process? There's a couple of things that I think really stand out, and I'd love to hear Jerry's take on this. In one of them is, while there was an 80+% increase in the use of a chatbot, an intelligent chatbot that uses natural language processing, conversational AI, still only 15% of Fortune 500 companies are using it to help with recruiting. And the numbers, at least, and I'll give you Phenom numbers because we obviously know ours really well, are undeniable. If you parse out frontline workers, high volume from, knowledge workers, because they're slightly different use cases, but, frontline workers are 70+% willing to engage with a chatbot on a first visit to a career site. It's the first thing they go to. 41% of those people will become a lead, meaning they're going to leave some information behind that says, I'm interested in something, right? Why don't you tell me more? And 71% will apply to a job. Those numbers are just crazy big. For knowledge workers, in the 1 to 2 visits, 60% are engaging with the chatbot. 42% are leaving information behind, and 58% are applying to jobs through a chatbot. So, and if you draw that even farther, if you look at something like interview scheduling, where you can automate the process, right? I've applied for a job, I've done some screening, maybe I've somehow pre-qualified for work. I'm going to get that first interview scheduled. So you can go from first visit to scheduled interview in under 3 minutes. Now that, in terms of automation for everyone involved, that is a really great experience, and then to get the subsequent communications after that, they can be automated, they can be, human intervened, depending on how the system is set up, and the use cases are different for each role. But now you're nurturing. So you haven't just engaged, you've attracted, you've engaged, you've converted, and you're nurturing all in a matter of minutes with a single tool. And the power of that, it befuddles me that there are companies that have the budget and time, and it doesn't take much to stand up a chatbot. It really doesn't. Like, you look at us and some of the other competitors out there. Paradox is I like their product. I'll just say it out loud. And we're good competitors. Like, the way that we do things, it doesn't take long to set this up. Your return on investment happens very, very quickly. And so why is the question?
Well, that's what I was going to ask you, because it seems like there's two streams of argument here, right? Or two different issues as you're talking about that. One is, why wouldn't you implement it? Right? Is that like is it a cost issue? Is it a timing issue? Did the pandemic and the pandemic emergence issue and budgets and all that, is that just put a pause on our evolution for tools like this that should be helpful? I mean, there's probably a number of reasons, but I'm wondering, one, does the report out that, or is it just kind of a thing where we're scratching our heads going, come on, TA leaders?
Yeah,
This
so the
is a
report
no-brainer.
doesn't really out that, but I will tell, because I think it's really experiential, and again, I think Jerry can contribute some feedback here. From what I see, it falls down to really two things. Leaders that, and I've heard this from a lot of leaders, and I'll call them legacy leaders, really experienced individuals in their thing, but not experienced with technology, have this mental barrier that this stuff doesn't work, right? I used a chatbot on X site and had a bad experience, so it just doesn't work. So there's that. There's sort of just the legacy way of thinking that it doesn't. I know that it doesn't work, even though the data says that it does. The second is just a perception that the investment in, not in budget, but in time, is going to be too long for us to yield a beneficial return. And what I say to that is time's going to pass regardless. And if you're not doing this today, if you look at the Fortune 500 companies that are using chat technologies, their time to hire, their quality of hire, their analytics around and intelligence around their TA organization is much stronger, faster, deeper, better. Like, it's just unequivocal. The evolution that this particular technology can bring.
Cliff, let me ask you, because I mean, we do a monthly open mic with heads of talent, and it's open to our membership body. You got 100+ companies. We typically get 25 to 30 folks on that call every month. They're talking about whatever, and the agenda sort of organically evolves. It's 45 minutes a month. And one of the issues that continues to sort of like a revolving door come back, and we talked about it at one of our recent meetings, is change management. Yep. So the idea that just flipping a switch, whether it's on a chatbot or an RPO or an ATS, but just turning it on will fix the issue. It seems to me, and this was kind of the second piece I was getting to earlier, is that turning this on seems like a no-brainer to me. The data says, the numbers don't lie. This is beneficial for your organization. It's lead gen out the wazoo. But what you've got on the back end of that is, well, how do I manage it? What do I have to do differently in order to reap the rewards of that? I can't just turn it on and say, well, gosh, Cliff, it didn't work, and so we're not going to renew, or I'm not going to invest in that going forward. But like, I think there's a huge component here that gets missed on several elements within TA, and that's the change management aspect.
Yeah, I would agree. I think looking at the change management piece and that's sort of that second piece that's going to take too long. It's too much stuff. And this is where I think we've done a really good job in this domain of understanding it's a crawl, walk, run. You're not going to turn on 100 automations on day one, right? That's just not going to happen. For a lot of our clients, what they turn on first is, let's just start with job matching, right? Let's start with that level of personalization where you're having a conversation. Remember, a chatbot is a 24/7 recruiter. It never is down, right? So it's always there. And I'll say this, the piece that a lot of clients don't think about is the opportunity to engage culture and brand through a chatbot conversation. It's not just answering, here's a list of benefits we have, or here's the hours of work, or here's a bunch of jobs. It's like, here's why this work is important to us. Here's how you can play a part in that. Your skills, your values. Here's how we contribute to that. So what we're seeing across the board is not just the talent acquisition, the recruiters, talent marketers are getting involved. The marketing side of the business is getting involved, saying, let's bind and align our core culture and brand message and value into every response. So I'm going to match you with a job, and I'm going to tell you why this job is important to our organization and why you might actually be a really good fit to that. Like, come on into the conversation. So that piece of it is absolutely a piece that takes discipline and takes time, but it's not something, let's just put it this way. When automobiles were invented and the horse and carriage trade looked at it as a fad and said, it's too expensive and let's not do it. And they went all and bought a new factory and started building more carriages. And in a matter of a decade, we're done. It became a novelty in a decade. So you can ignore these technologies at your peril, because it will be at your peril. And all of a sudden your TA organization, it's not that the tool isn't being used. It's that you haven't set up your organization to be innovative. And that's the biggest challenge in all of these new technologies, is that many organizations are not set up for innovation. It's the first thing in a conversation that we need to talk about. What's your tolerance for change? What's the most recent thing that you've innovated on or changed in your organization? How did that go? Because that, and I was just interviewed, I think it was, some publication where we're talking about this. That to me is the biggest barrier. You have organizations that are ready for innovation, understand change management. You have those that aren't. Mm-hmm. Both are good candidates, but the ones that aren't, that's where you start the conversation. Like, here's how you bring in this technology. Here's how you explain it, defend it, configure it, all of the adjectives or pronouns to describe what it needs to be. It's not about what the technology can do. It's about how to teach your organization and get them ready for future innovation.
I think there's one piece that we have a lot of work still to do. And I agree with all of what's been said. Change management is a key issue. But one perspective that keeps being missed is the perspective of the employee and the candidate in relation to whether they're seeing what we're seeing. Because we keep on talking about what we see and the data we're collecting about how people are using this or using that. Yet we're not making the linkage to the change in attitudes and behaviors of the candidate or employee as a result of what we are seeing, because we're not talking to them. And what I want to know, for example, is whether or not the experience that we keep talking about, the candidate's experience, converts really to a perception on my part that this process is fairer for me, helps me to be more competitive, either with this job, or since 99% of us are going to not go forward, with the next job that I might be applying for. And so if we're truly engaging the candidate about how they perceive the experience, we're now gaining insights, if you will, on what that data actually means and infers for how I'm going to behave in the future toward you, towards you as a customer. The candidate who does not go forward, who stops buying the product of that company that didn't have a real good relationship with him or her, we're not measuring that cost. And I think when we start doing that, those legacy TA leaders and HR leaders and company leaders are going to see that linkage, and I think become much more amenable, if you will, to then setting up the kind of change management that they really need to.
Yeah, you couldn't have said it better. I mean, we always have to, the lens has to be from the inside out. Yeah. And too often it's outside in. And I'll put it this way. It's the difference between attraction versus promotion. Promotion is just what you're talking about. We're great. We have all this data that says we're great, right? Attraction is saying, come join us and be a part of something, bigger than yourself, but being able to contribute. Attraction is, why we want you here versus telling you need to be here. That is a mantra, Jerry. I just could not agree more that measuring how well we're attracting, how well we're delivering these things in terms of experience comes down to talking to the individuals involved.
Yeah, I think lots of what you have in your report is very supportive of and added value, if you will, to some of the kind of data that the talent board develops. In a different way. And I know that Phenom has always been a strong supporter of the talent board. Yep. And I think the combination of information that's coming in from different directions, I think can be used to be even more influential, if you will, in helping those legacy folks go, we need to do something a little different.
Let's touch on that, because one of the differences in the way the candidate experience delivers their information and in the way that this report from Phenom has come is there's rankings, there's listings, there's lots of data points in here. And I like it. Like, some of these look like a little bit of a punch in the face, and then others are like, oh, and I want to go check some of these out. I'm going to pull it back up, but Cliff, and I know we're coming up on time, but Cliff, can you walk us through maybe, let me see if I can turn that on again. There we go. Can you walk us through sort of maybe what we're looking at, and sort of a bit of methodology, a bit of history behind that? Why the choice to out the Fortune companies, and how you guys came to do that?
Yeah, well, here's, again, Fortune 500 is easy because it's, it is the 500 companies that globally everybody's looking at. And we actually do a version of this for the Euro 100 as well. These are leading companies. They're leading in their vertical. They're leading in a marketplace. They are attracting, at least by brand, a wide swath of the available talent. And so our report is saying, how are you treating that talent? How are you also treating your own brand in representing that experience? And so when you break down, attraction, engagement, and conversion, and then the AI piece, these are three big buckets that are easy for anyone to understand, right? So from attraction perspective, is how candidates and applicants getting to you beneficial to their experience? Again, this is all from the candidate's perspective. Yeah. From an engagement, once they're there, are you doing things that are engaging? Do you have good content? Do you have good navigation? Are you using good tools? Like, I'll give you an example of something that isn't measured in this report, but we're going to start measuring it, is WCAG compliance. So your accessibility compliance. That plays into diversity, equity, inclusion in a really big way. Persons with disabilities are a huge audience. And so are you doing the right thing in order to deliver the same experience to them as you would to an able-bodied person? So you look at that engagement, and you're looking at those things. The conversion is a very simple thing. How many steps are you putting between the person and applying for a job? It's really that simple, right? And for a lot of ATSs, they have that login that you got to go through first, and the mobile experience is horrendous. Which
blows my mind in 2023.
I don't understand it. But look, that's why, as a domain, to Jerry's point, as a domain, we can solve these problems, right? But we have to expose them first. Like, you're not doing right by your candidate. I mean, I had one client that it was 6 clicks to get to apply, and it took 7 minutes to get there. Now, who's going to go through that, right? And they're wondering why that they have a conversion. Their attraction was through the roof. They get 1 million people a month hitting their career site, and they convert 3%. 3%. So all their marketing is doing a great job. Everything they say, again, the attraction piece doing awesome, but once they get there, it's falling completely flat because they're not managing the experience and not managing the technology. So the AI piece is really simple. When you talk about AI, is it being leveraged away where the human is at the center of the purpose of the artificial intelligence and machine learning? Is it there to make that experience hyper personalized so that every visit, every click, it's learning more, as long as the candidate applicant is willingly, participating in that? And most do, by the way. 1.3% don't. If anybody wants to know who does it, who turns off cookies and personalization, just browses privately, it's 1.3%. So AI is being used in a really big way. But I think, to Jerry's point, are we really measuring the effectiveness of that engagement? And that's one of the things we look at on, through our tool. It's clickstream data, it's behavioral data collection, how they're engaging with the technology, what is working and what isn't, and are you making that adjustment? Because I'll tell you, our algorithms, which we started using 12 years ago, are vastly different today than they were 12 years ago. Vastly. Like, they don't even look like they're the same thing. And this is us as a domain looking at this and saying the need for innovation and change is constant. And so measuring ourselves against that, and things like even NPS score, which is built into most platforms now, as a simple way of just measuring, at the high 100,000 foot view, if you're at a 2.6 out of 5, you got problems. and you better be paying attention to how you're delivering things. So even something as simple as that literally can be implemented in an hour. You can implement an NPS score, a survey system. Super simple, right? A lot of what you see here, it doesn't even require the client to buy Phenom or to buy Paradox. When you talk about improving search, improving navigability of a site, making sure that content is rotated and up to date. These are things that organizations can do without even buying new technology. So again, it's really just confusing, and I get awestruck at the lack of paying attention to just the basics, let alone bringing in something like a really cool conversational chatbot.
Yeah. Well, I agree. So look, for those who may be listening and not watching, you can get the report that we've had up on the screen and that Cliff's been talking about. It's cxr.work/Phenom Experience, and it's PHENOM, Phenom Experience. And that'll get you directed over the report so you can grab it. I got to tell you, Cliff, so we do this at the end of every one of our podcast show, and we're just so grateful to have you on. But if we ask this question every time, if you were going to write a book about the state of things today, based on what we've talked about, what do you think you would title that book?
Yeah. Innovate or Die.
I can't
Sort of like Live Free or Die, but yeah, I like that.
Little liberty there. Okay. So then, Cliff, who would you give, present company excluded, who would you give the first signed copy to?
The first signed copy would have to go to my children, undoubtedly. And why is not for the reason that you might think. It's because this is the world they're growing up in at 4 and 7 years old. If they don't understand change management and innovation and just what we started, for those of us that are old enough to know, back in the 80s, started really with this computer and technology age. It is only, if you look at generative AI, the speed at which innovation is happening is unprecedented. And that's not going to, unless we turn the electricity off, it's not going to stop. So this is the change that's in front of us. This is what we have to teach our children. And so I would hope that lesson would be born on my kids first.
I love that. The only adoption we're seeing happen faster is just to show your disdain for Elon Musk is just downloading Threads. I think that's the only thing we've seen go faster.
One quick thing about Threads. Threads all that's just hype. Threads is not, in the long run, is not going to beat Twitter. Not by a long shot.
No. Well, we'll see. There's an argument there, and you've got, is it Blue Sky? I think you've got Blue Sky right around the corner. You guys, so we'll see. We'll see who's got what. It's a fun fight to watch.
Everybody has counted Elon Musk out how many times in his career, and I just say don't. The guy is one of the smartest, most brilliant people on the planet. Whether you like him or not, that's irrelevant. It's undeniable.
If you replace people with man-child, I would agree with you.
Yeah,
100%. Innovative man-child. He's great, with unlimited resources.
Yeah.
All right, Cliff. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. We're super grateful of your time. We really, really appreciate it, and we hope you have a great remainder of your summer.
Yes. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Chris.
Good stuff. Thanks, everybody. And we'll see everybody next week. And again, if you're interested in coming out to the candidate experience meeting that we've got coming up in September, you just info us or email us at info@cxr.works, and we'll set up an interview and see if you qualify. Thanks, everybody. And we'll see you next time on the show.
Thanks for listening to the CXR channel. Please subscribe to CXR on your favorite podcast resource and leave us a review while you're at it. Learn more about CXR at our website, cxr.works, facebook.com and twitter.com/careercrossroads, and on Instagram @careerxroads. We'll catch you next time.